Today we're going deep into one of pro wrestling's most powerful tools, the rule of three. It may be something you're already using without even knowing, but to truly understand the principles behind it is to truly understand how to engage a crowd and tell a story in the ring.
Well, I see a certain kitten still knows how to scratch.
So if you're anything like me, you may have been brought up in pro wrestling to recognize that three is a powerful number. We often do things in groups of three. If we're fighting out of a headlock, it's 1, 2, 3, hit the ropes. And when we cut promos, we tend to put things into threes. We talk about this, and the other. Today, we're going to show our strength, our finesse, and we're going to win that championship. But it's only recently that I've broken down exactly why it's a powerful tool and how to manipulate it to your own advantage. So firstly, let's look at why 3 is such a powerful number. And I guess if we're talking about speech or promos or even just writing in sentences, we often use 3s because it just flows better. It sounds more powerful.
I am the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be.
If you use 1, it kind of cuts the sentence short. And if you use too many, then it's just verbal diarrhea. But the same goes in the ring. If you are doing the same move once, it's a move. If you do it twice, it's a coincidence. If you do it 3 times, it starts to really build a pattern. You hit it 4, 5, 6, 7 times, and unless you're Brock Lesnar going to Suplex City, it can become a little mundane, a little bit boring. So 3 is kind of that happy medium. But it does go a little bit deeper than that, and there's plenty of neuroscience on the topic. In fact, in my research for today's episode, I found a lot of information about how the brain processes information and how it holds chunks of memory in batches of 3 to 5 bits. So when you start flooding it and storing too much memory, too much short-term memory, a lot of it tends to disappear. So it's why when it comes to coaching, I always say, keep your feedback quite brief, keep your suggestions to maybe 2 or 3 pieces of information. Any more than that, it's probably going to go a little bit over their heads. It's going to be forgotten. If you're enjoying these videos and want to support me in making bigger and better content just like this, make sure you head over to my worldbeaterwrestling.com Patreon. It's a community for pro wrestlers, current and aspiring, a place of networking, collaboration, and exclusive learning content to help you on your pro wrestling journey. Anyway, back to the video. And this brings us to the next principle of why the rule of 3s is so important, and that is pattern recognition. Our brains want to be lazy. In the most layman's term, it wants to recognize patterns and it wants to switch off because it's comfortable that it knows what's going to happen next. Now, this is great for human nature. It is not so great for your pro wrestling matches because you never want that crowd to switch off. So if you're hitting the same move over and over and over, or you're hitting the same kind of cadence in your promos, the same kind of pitch, people will start to switch off. However, you can use that to your advantage. But first, let's look at building that pattern. Now, one mistake that people often make in pro wrestling when it comes to the in-ring is they're trying to build patterns, but there's just too many moving parts and pieces, and the pattern never really looks the same, so it never really sinks into the crowd. Now, the most simple way I can explain this in a pro wrestling in-ring sense is you want to make sure that the beats of the pattern are all very, very similar, if not identical. So if it comes to a move like, let's say, a vertical suplex, and maybe that's the pattern you want to build, you want to make sure that the setup, the execution, the landing are all pretty much the same. You're going to hook them in a front headlock. You're going to hook their arm over your head. You're going to hit a nice stalling vertical. You're going to make sure you're not doing a snap suplex in there. You're not going to do a head and arm suplex in there because although they are very similar moves, they're not exactly the same in the way they appear, the pace that they're hit at, the intensity they're hit at. So this can kind of dilute the message and you may struggle to get your point across. And why would we want to establish these patterns in ring? Well, it all comes down to expectation violation. When you hit that second vertical suplex, you're teaching the crowd subconsciously that this is the move you hit, this is what it looks like. So the third time you hook them with that front headlock, considering you've kept the setup exactly the same, they're expecting the same thing. They're expecting that vertical suplex again, which is going to resolve the expectation. Now here's where it gets fun. If you break that expectation by having your opponent perhaps hook you in a small package or float over behind and start their comeback, immediately you will gain the crowd's focus. Why? Because to their brain, which is in the process of switching off, remember, wants to be lazy, you have done something completely different against all expectations, all hell's breaking loose, we need to focus. And as I said, this is a subconscious thing. It's not like the crowd are actively thinking this. They're just watching a pro wrestling match, but this is how their brains function. It's why I teach my students the importance of zagging when they expect you to zig. And this doesn't mean you have to do it all the time. As I said, those patterns must be established first. And that's probably one of my biggest critiques, is that too many people just don't take the time to establish patterns. There's too much going on. The moves are all over the place. So there's nothing to really cling on to. We want those people to expect what's coming next, anticipate what's coming next, and then play with their emotions when you resolve it. Okay, lots of information, but how are you going to apply the rule of three moving forwards? Well, I'd be looking at 3 different aspects of professional wrestling, being matches, storylines, and promos. When it comes to matches, it's really simple stuff. Take the time to build routines, build patterns in your work. Make sure that your crowd knows the kinds of things you do and knows what to expect. Once you've got that expectation down, you can break expectations whenever you like, and you can get the response you really need on a moment's notice. If you don't have a lot of match time, maybe it's a 3, 4, 5-minute match, and perhaps you don't have time to run a classic 3-act structure of shine, heat, go home, well then the entire match could be based around the rule of 3. You hit that move early, you hit it again in the middle, and you have it counted near the end. And if you do have time, well, you can sprinkle it throughout. There's been many times where I've based my entire shine around the rule of 3. You hit something once, hit it a second time, and the third time they counter it to go into the heat. Or you can flip it around. It can be that you're attempting a move once, you attempt it a second time, and the third time you finally get it done. Of course, it would work just as well in the heat. The heel hits a move once, hits it twice, third time you counter it to go into the comeback, and even the go home. So be as creative as you wish. When it comes to storylines, it's a really simple case of if the crowd expects you to go one way, every now and then, go the other way. A bit of delayed gratification never hurt anyone, except Cody Rhodes, and I stand by that one. And as far as promos go, make sure that even in the shortest promos, it's not all monotone. You change your pitch from time to time. Perhaps your promo starts quite soft, you ramp up intensity, and then bring it down at the end. If you're just yelling and ranting and raving the whole time, it's kind of going to become white noise. You know, we can look at someone like Mick Foley for inspiration, the way that he used to just change the pitch of his promos, often on a whim, very quickly.
Face and my name meant a difference. Do you remember the night, Tommy Dreamer? Because it's embedded in my skull.
He'd bring his decibels down very low. You had to kind of listen in and hear what he was saying. It was almost a whisper. And then he would just go high. And it would catch you off guard. It would catch your attention. But it would also bring about that kind of aura of, this is a man who is very unstable. So play around with pattern building, play around with breaking expectations. And if this kind of topic is something that interests you, I'm going to drop a link in the captions, which breaks down film and how the rule of 3 applies to so many classic moments. I thought it was a really interesting watch if you really want to get nerdy with it. I'd love to know what you thought. Where do you see the rule of 3s utilized best? Where have you used it in your own game? Drop it in the comments box below, and I'll see you next time for another episode.